Yes.
We've got a very full agenda, so we're going to try to get through it as reasonably quickly as possible. What do we stand on the roll call?
Yes,
We
do
got
have
some people online.
Yes, we do have a quorum. We have 5 of our member entities present.
Okay. Now, here's Mr. Sutton. This is right.
We have 6.
And quick introduction, we have Nick Presley from Jackson Kelly with us today.
Good morning.
And he's standing in for Grace. So apparently he's done work in the past on the levy documents and familiar with our work. We just haven't seen him face to face yet.
Right. Happy to be here. Nice to meet you guys in person.
Yeah, welcome. We'll look at the minutes from September 15th if there's any questions or revisions. If not, is there a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Scott Menifee on the financial statements.
In your packet, you would have had the financial information, so if y'all want to take a look there on schedule number 2, that statement of revenues and expenses. For the month, the operating revenues, the $152,423, and operating expenses, $1,135,482. Again, makes a little more sense. We can see comparisons year to date there on schedule 3 for the 3 months this year and the previous year. Total operating revenues of the $527,127 compared to the previous year's $382,958, and on the operating expenses, $3,421,362 compared to $3,161,153. On schedule 4 for the 4-week moving totals, revenues up 38, 48, 50-some%, and then the related riderships up 4, 5, 6, 7%. And again, remember those higher numbers where you got the SOAR rides, the trips in there that do count on the revenue, and we get the full rate. That's why there's such a big difference there.
Well, tell that again, because I noticed there was a big difference there when you looked at the revenue.
And on the revenue, that they're the non-emergency medical, which is a little bit different than SOAR, they will buy a lump of passes.
Okay.
They bought like 50,000 or something.
Okay.
They get because it's cheaper for them to have the passengers if they're able to ride the bus to do
Okay.
that. And again, that happens 2-3 times a year, and that was the month they hit.
Okay.
So I was looking, it was way after revenue, but a little bit different than what the that 4-week total by itself.
Right.
On the daily fare box revenue there on the 4B, post-COVID, we've been just shy of the 18,000, and again, it's right there at the 17, 16, 18,000 with it. No dramatic increases or decreases, but still holding steady. On the GFI from the fare box, the actual revenue count for September was the 91,487. Previous year September was the 82,833, an increase of about 9.5%, $8,600 dollar amount there. $4D, consistent there on the use of the period to pass. An average pass is used, that's 67.6%. Change there.
Can you hear me?
Instead of the exact number, just looking at our statistics we've used there on Schedule 5, the average passenger a day was about 3,352 compared to previous September's 3,200, and for the month, you're just over 85,000 compared to 81,000 the previous year. And then the one we're trying to keep an eye on, not much we can do about it, but they're on Schedule 6, the excess levy. Again, September is the large month, we get quite a bit there in October as well. But year to date, right now, it's 1.69%, decrease from what it was previously, and that should be all those little residual amounts coming in and everything. So it should be pretty steady, and then again, we won't get that one firm grasp on it until that March one comes in and the rest of that money, we'll see where we are. think that's it, unless somebody's got any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Scott on the financial statements? If not, we're gonna move along to item 5 on invoices in excess of $5,000.
We do not have any invoices over $5,000.
Okay, and then 6A, Kirk, on the insurance report.
Thank you. We only had one incident that's been reported this period from an accident that occurred back in November of 2021. It finally closed. So that was the only insurance report we have. It was an accident. I think we said rear-ended someone, so we finally closed that one.
Okay.
Good.
Jacob on CAT.
Not much change from last month. There's just a slight increase in number of trips each day we're doing. Sewers, receipts 55,000 there last month. It's staying steady. And we met on topic from last month about the proposed markup that got delayed to February. A couple weeks ago, we held some listening sessions for the drivers to come out. We scheduled 20 hours over 2 weeks for the drivers to come up, and 8 drivers came up to share some opinions and suggestions. They weren't really related to the markup. It was just, more general suggestions on what we can do to improve their work days. But we're going to take those suggestions here in the next couple of weeks and meet with the union to also go over their suggestions to see what can be done to improve the markup for this coming February.
Okay, so the markup that we talked about last meeting, you've gotten their input, driver's input, and you're gonna start massaging what you all originally put together to
Right, yeah.
incorporate those.
It will decide with the union if the suggestions can improve it, and then take those suggestions to the scheduling company and see what they can do to see if they can improve or tweak the original version.
Okay. David, did you meet with them on those listening sessions and have provided any input?
I gave them a letter with the union suggestions, and we're gonna meet on the 26th.
Okay, so you're being heard.
We are.
Okay, that's great to hear. Anything else, Jacob?
No, that's it.
Okay. 6C, Sean.
Sure, try to keep it short and sweet. On the facility improvement plan, we've had a lot of action in the last couple of weeks. Linda was here last week for a design charade to talk about the facility. We've had Thrasher on site doing an actual survey of the facility and our property in the bounds. Next week, we're having a geotechnical work begin. We received a feedback from FTA on our environmental narrative, so we've submitted a request for a categorical exclusion from the FTA, and they responded back with several questions, and we're working through that now with Thrasher, but it's extremely positive. SHPO, the West Virginia State Historical Preservation Office, responded back that nothing here would qualify as a historical facility, which is a big hurdle to pass because that can really slow things down. So it's been positive, really, and we're moving forward. We've had some of those listening sessions have also been geared towards soliciting feedback from drivers and mechanics. Next week, it's going to start with mechanics to ask about feedback from our actual employees on what the building, any suggestions on things that could be tweaked or changed. So it's moving forward, and everything's been positive so far. You see some marks, when you walked in, you may have seen some marks where they've actually been doing the surveying and marking the utilities, and that's made it much more real for us to actually see things on the ground, so that's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay, item 7, new business. We have Chris Lambert and Anthony Cornell from Sullivan Stoniker. They're our auditors, and they're here year to year, and they're going to do a presentation. This is for our benefit, so hopefully you read the material that was sent out in advance. Thank you for being timely with that. And here's your chance to hear what Chris has to say and ask questions.
Kind of move up here to the table so it's a little easier to hear me maybe. So thank you for this opportunity. I am the partner in charge of this audit, and you should have 2 books in front of you. Let's start with the one that says financial statements and additional information. That's the audited financial statements for the authority. So if we turn to page 3, is our auditor's report. Here's where we give our opinion on your financial statements. And if you're an accounting geek or paid attention, you know, the accounting standards changed last year. I'm sure no one really cared, but our opinion changed. So this wording and verbiage on pages 3 through 5 has changed. And so we used to bury the opinion on the second or third page. We would talk about what we did on the first page, but they're like, well, the most important thing is the opinion. So we've moved that to the very first paragraph. So, or the very first bullet there. So what you're looking for is the second paragraph. In our opinion, the financial statements refer to present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the business type activities of the authority. So that is an unmodified opinion, no issues with your audit. So that's our opinion.
Good.
That's good. You know, the rest of this report talks about what standards we have to follow, the responsibilities of management, the things that we have to do. In page 4, there's like 5 bullets of what we have to, as part of our audit, what we do. Required supplementary information we looked at. That's your MD&A and your schedules on OPEB and pension liabilities that we look at. Then we get on page 5, supplementary information. Here's where we look at your CFA, your schedule of federal expenditures. It's all required. Your Section 9 operating assistance. So you know, everything we give an opinion on is covered in our report here on these 3 pages. When you turn to page 6, we start the management discussion and analysis. And I think it's pretty good, these 6 or 7 bullet points, financial highlights. That kind of talks, I mean, Scott, obviously, you know, you all meet monthly or whatever, and he gives you this stuff. But comparing 22 to 21, we lay out about 6 bullet points there that I think, you know, kind of summarize how the authority did compared in 22 compared to 21. So your net position is up to 21 million. That's the difference between your assets and liabilities. And so 8.7 of it's unrestricted, which means you can spend it on any thing that the authority, you know, spends money on. The rest of it, the other 12 million, is tied up in capital assets. So you've invested it in buildings and buses and things like that. Can't be spent. Your assets did increase last year by about 2.4 million. Operating revenue was up, basically because ridership has come back with COVID slowing down. Non-operating revenue is down, you know, less CARES Act money coming in. Operating expenses are down because we, you know, stopped doing the $4 extra raise, you know, because of COVID, and the authority completed the transit mall. So I think those are the highlights of the year. We turn to page 10. That's your statement of net position. If you're in the for-profit world, it's a balance sheet. So it's your assets, deferred outflows or resources, liabilities, deferred inflows, and your net position. And so, like I said, your net position went up about $3 million, which is good. Anytime there's an increase in net position, that means the authority had a positive year. Cash is up because we had a positive year, so we didn't. Our pension liability is up a little bit. Capital assets are up a little bit. You finished the mall. So I think that's kind of the highlights. And if anyone has questions while I'm talking, feel free to jump in there and ask. Turning to page 11 is your statements of revenues, expenses, and changes, net position, or an income statement. So, you know, the first area there is we have operating revenues, so passenger fares basically. You can see we're up 300 grand we talked about. Next one's operating expenses. We're down about 3.5 million because of wages mostly. Non-operating revenues are down 3.5 million because of less COVID money, and so you finish the year with $3 million like we talked about. Page 12 is a statement of cash flows, just kind of where the money came from and how you all spent it. And cash did increase by 1.3 million there in that thing. Then we get to the footnotes, which are pages 13 through 35. Here's where we lay out your accounting policies, more detail on the numbers that are in the financial statements, and more thoroughly explain how all these things are accounted for under the accounting rules. There's no new notes, there's no changes in the notes, just updated for the current year numbers. So I don't think you want me to go through a whole lot of those notes, so I'll skip those. But if anybody, is interested, I'll be happy to answer questions on any of the disclosures. And then the rest, and then pages 37 through 46 are required supplementary information. So changes in your pension liability, and it's a 10-year run on how it's changed and what goes into it, what you've contributed to it over the 10 years. Then the OPEB liability, it's supposed to be 10 years, but the rule only took effect in 17, so we only have 17 forward. Eventually it'll be a 10-year look at your OPEB liability and your contributions. There's notes on it. Then we get to the other supplementary information on 43, which is just a schedule of operating expenses. This is required by the Federal Transportation Authority. Your Section 9 operating assistance, that's required. And then 45 is your CFA, schedule of expenditures for federal awards. Obviously, you're required to have a single audit. Anytime you expend over $750,000 of federal money, you have to have what we call a single audit, an audit of the programs that you spend the money on. And we have to do additional testing of the expenditures that go through that program. And so obviously you're well over the $750,000 because of the operating grant you got there. Some years you could drop under and not have to have a single audit. Then the last two reports are back to Sutherland Stoneacre's reports. So our auditor's report on internal control under government auditing standards, and basically we have to look at your internal control and give an opinion that it's satisfactory for the organization and you're fine. And then our auditor's report on compliance, and so this was the compliance of the federal program that we tested under the single audit. And here we give an opinion in that first paragraph. And it's, in our opinion, it's good. So it's to represent fairly. So that's what you want to see. So that's kind of the financial statements very quickly. Happy to explain.
Good question.
Yes, sir.
Page 37, which is talking about the pension liability. The board put a sizable chunk of money into the driver's pension, the union pension fund. And I don't remember what fiscal year that was in, but it was probably a year ago. How is that reflected on here, or should it be on this statement? It was $2 million. Scott, would you remember?
Well, the thing is with their plan, that plan year is 8/31. So to be completed for that 6/30 audit, they used the previous year. So it's kind of a year behind.
So that's not
for it
reflected
to
on this
show.
yet?
Right. That's,
Okay, I wondered, 'cause it
it's
seemed like-
misleading,
Yeah.
but again, you're not gonna have everything done to have everything done at the audit time.
So their plan year is different than our fiscal year?
All three of our retirement plans have a different plan year. So it's keeping track of them, getting the censuses done. Why 8/31? I don't know how that created, that's the way it's always been.
Even if you were in the PERS plan, the state plan, it's a year behind too. So like when we put the numbers in all our government agencies for 6/30/22, we're using what they're giving us from 6/30/21. They couldn't get it done in time.
Okay,
Basically. So
which
it's
is
always
fine,
gonna be behind.
but a year from now, this should
Yeah.
improve substantially because of that sizable chunk of money.
Yeah. The only thing that probably will hurt you in that is investment returns
Yeah.
are not gonna be good. So you may be down, the liability could be up just because of investment returns. And if the plan's down 20% or whatever, it may not.
So is the $9 million, that's the amount that was in the account at the end of 2022?
No, that's the amount that it's short of what's in there.
So
So the liability is up at like the 16.9 million.
Okay,
You have assets of 7.6 basically, and you have a liability of 9 million.
so it got an additional 25% funded because of that $2 million investment? Okay.
And we'll have those, it'll probably be in December, we'll be able to see that stuff, and we don't normally report or anything like that, but I mean, we can bring those up in the meetings, just let you know, we forward those copies.
I just wanna make sure, cause I can't recall the time when we did that, but it's gonna be reflected in that.
Yeah, the contribution will be, but, you know, actuaries change the assumptions too, so that can affect it, you know. So they may say, well, people are gonna live longer, or you're not gonna make as good an investment return, or inflation is higher. All those things will increase your liability, or
Right.
decrease, whether you put money in or not.
But we still put a
Yeah,
huge
you
percentage
did,
compared
yes.
to what we had.
Yes, sir.
What he was saying there too, we were so far behind, we hadn't changed in like 10 years and all. It was just easier, hey, we're gonna bite the bullet, do it all in this 1 year, 'cause he's gonna phase it in. And we'd done that maybe 3 or 4 years ago, so that way, going forward each year, those little incremental changes, we'd be addressing them instead of just hitting a large chunk each time. So
Okay.
we're pretty much, you know, we are up to date, but all those things are factored in.
Okay. That's my question. You carry on.
Yes, sir. Okay, so the second report I have here is the one that's labeled Report to the Board of Directors. Here's where we put our required communications that we have to communicate to the board under our professional standards. And those are on pages 4 through 6. The rest of it's just kind of supplementary information of everything that happened during the audit to make you all aware. So pages 4 through 6 is where we would lay out any issues or problems. We do lay out that, you know, you adopt a new accounting policy, had no effect. You know, we had no difficulties, we had no disagreements. All those things would have to be laid out here and communicated to you. So there really weren't any of those things, so they all kind of say we didn't have that. The rest of it, like I said, is just supplementary, so you're aware. So, you know, on page 7, the estimates, all financial statements have estimates. Here are the estimates that, you know, the major estimates that are in your financials, and we agree with those. We had a couple journal entries on page 8. Those really relate to the pension and OPEB, and that's only because we started the audit before that information was available. So we had to book, you know, entries to agree to the reports after the fact. Page 9 is two insignificant things, you know, we picked up during testing. Like, we didn't make these adjustments, we passed on them, and just noted. And then the communications between us and management are start on page 10. The first one being the management letter. You know, we noted an insignificant thing. Well, I shouldn't say insignificant. We noted that we can't, that timesheets may be approved, but there's no documentation of that approval, so we can't test it. So we're not saying, so maybe the timesheets were given to someone, they reviewed them, and then they submitted them, but they don't document that approval, so we can't test it. So, you know, they didn't put their initials on a timesheet, or they didn't send an email, you know, saying, well, I approve these.
To say after that, when I was to jump in, like, well, we can't kinda, is we do that markup, is it every 3 months or?
3 months.
Or 4 months? The drivers, they sign up for it, then they indicate, hey, I want this run, this run, this run, and if there's no changes, or they're not on the extra board where they have to do or do additional stuff, all of those are signed off on, all of those could be tested. For the person making that run, it's on that markup. So I mean, contractually, we've satisfied everything, but we can't, we're not gonna have each employee every day to sign off on something because they've done their job. But that's why, it's a conflict from what they're looking at, what they would like to see, and what we're able to do, but it's addressed.
Was it cited last year?
It has, yeah.
And there's no, so you're.
Our markup covers it, contractually we're covered, but again, it's something that they would like to see something more.
Like David, like signs up for run 155, and he does it Monday through Friday, and every week, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
And then only time he'll fill a timesheet out is if his run takes longer that day, he'll turn in overtime for 10 minutes.
Okay.
But unless that overtime doesn't happen, he wouldn't fill one out.
Yeah, so we can. You know. We note it, but
I try to talk them out each year, but they don't agree with that.
Just hit my forehead.
but anyway, the last 2 things are just copies of the engagement letter, the management representation letter that we signed. So it's kind of a summary of our audit for the year.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
It looks like we did pretty well, right?
You did okay.
Good job, Scott.
So Chris is sitting here, have time for questions if anybody has any. I appreciate you coming to the board meeting. I know you may think that we're sitting there staring at you while you're going through numbers, but it is useful to us to be able to see it and hear it and ask questions.
I mean, it's best practices, I'm used to it, we do it, for most, audits, so it's no big deal.
Okay, hopefully it's not inconvenience. There are some donuts here.
Yeah. I was a little worried about the traffic this morning on the rack getting
Oh,
here.
no, I saw that. Glad I wasn't on it.
So we do need a motion to accept the,
I'll make the motion to accept the auditor's report as presented.
I'll second.
okay, so motion by Sutton, second by Jay Snodgrass. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. See you later.
So time flies when you're having fun. And you didn't realize that Sean's been here for an entire year, which is hard to believe. There's been a lot going on. And Sean suggested that he wants to be reviewed. He thinks he's doing a good job. And I asked him to put together the information that was in the board packets, which gave everybody the opportunity to take a look at that, read it, decide for yourself, give you a chance to call Sean, take him to lunch, whatever you thought might be necessary to evaluate his outlook for his job and his job performance. So we're gonna do this in public session, and what I'd like for Sean to do is have a chance to just kind of summarize what's in writing, not necessarily bullet by bullet point, but anything that he thinks is important. And then I'm gonna ask Sean to excuse himself for a few minutes, and that way, if anybody has something they'd like to say that they might not feel comfortable saying while Sean's here, that they can say that. And then once we get past that, I'd ask Sean to come back in and we'll, go through any comments that you do want him to hear directly. And then we'll decide from there, what do we think as his performance has been as a board. Because I think it's important, this is one of the main roles of this board is to hire the executive director, and we're responsible for his actions. So I'm gonna let Sean kind of take over from here and give a summary of what his yearly experience has been.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been an entire year, and I thank you all for the opportunity to be able to do this job. It's been extremely exciting for me. I did want to touch back. I wanted to thank Jane for her time at the design charrette. I didn't mention that. She spent the entire day with us, and that was a long day, and Jennifer Harrell from the county commission also attended. So thank you to Jennifer also. So in the past year, it's been really exciting and eye-opening, coming into this, not necessarily understanding exactly what it entails to run the largest public transit entity in the state of West Virginia. Thankfully, I have an extremely talented team that I work with every single day, and a great group and a relationship with the union and the employees here. And we've really focused on really embracing technology changes. So when we talk, we kind of overload you sometimes in board meetings with, hey, we're going to move to mobile ticketing. We're going to try to bring in new software to do things more efficiently, or we're going to try to improve what we offer to our employees, the resources to make them more successful in their jobs. That's been a big priority of mine. And I'm really excited at where we've pushed that needle in regards to making some of those changes that have been. Oh, you're fine. Some of those changes that have been long overdue. I also had a really big priority of kind of elevating KRT in our community and being a better community partner. I think we've done a great job of that traditionally, but especially with the safety levy going on this year, we wanted to make sure we were out there letting communities know. And that's why we've really stepped up as far as doing public service charters, getting out there in front of everyone. We've had a great response from the media, from the city center opening up, and the work that our team did to make sure that that facility was successful. It's a night and day difference, the work that the city has done with us to make that area a positive spot in our community as opposed to the kind of stereotype of the transit mall that we used to have. So I'm really proud about how we pulled that off together, and I'll stop rambling, but really it's been an exciting year. I'm really excited about what's to come because I think the work we put in is about to pay off really soon when all these different projects start to actually happen that you've allowed us to do. So thank you for being so enabling of us and embracing some of the changes we've presented.
Okay, no, I think that's great. Everybody had all this information in advance, so hopefully you took the opportunity to take a look at that. There's a number of stakeholders in the room, everybody from staff to board members, city representative, union representative. So I'm going to ask Sean to step out, and the rest of us are going to stay put and there's a deficiency, I think this is the point and time to bring that up. And I'm opening it up to anybody in the room, which, to kind of weigh in.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
I'd just like to say, I think Sean has done an excellent job for somebody just coming in and not really being familiar with a lot of stuff. He's had a lot of things to deal with. I think he's worked very well with the board. And I'm not sure about the union. I'm assuming that he's done well with the union and our employees and treated them nice. So, I mean, I think he's done an excellent job.
Okay.
I just marvel how he picked right up, Mark. He never skipped a beat. You'd think he'd been here a long time, just in a year, his accomplishments.
And there's a long list. I mean, there's things that we're talking about now that we didn't even dream about before. And so I think that's
I
something.
will say this, a lot of it goes to credit for the employees. Not to take away from Sean, he's done an excellent job. But the employees have worked with him, or he wouldn't have not have, his star would have not been as bright. I don't mean to take away from him, but he has done an excellent job. I don't know how many of you saw the article that was in the paper that he had written. It was a great article on this amendment too.
Right.
So,
I would say from a staff perspective, or for just behind the scenes seeing things, I think sometimes there's too much of an emphasis put on experience, and it carries you, it does bring something, but when we go to our association meetings, the other transit people have been there so long, they were used to doing everything the same way. This year, some of the issues of the legislature, it wouldn't have been done, nobody saw how much work Kurt and Sean did behind the scenes, and that they brought their strength to the table. And these people, you know, like it was at the Huntington Moretown, I think, you know, one phone call they used to make to one lobbyist would do something. And again, we went in with an approach, it didn't work. We'd hoped the easiest scenario was going to work. We had to go to plan B, C, and it got a lot bigger and snowballed. And people don't know with that union checkoff, the importance of that. It was to all the transits. And I don't think they really appreciate his efforts because he's coming in new and he didn't have that experience. But again, it gives you a different look at things. It allows us to move forward, be willing to take some chances. Because everything we do is not going to be perfect, but we're willing to make a mistake, to correct it and go forward. And he's encouraged us to do that, bring ideas to the table. And it's, again, nothing bad on past stuff, but it's something for us moving forward. It's been a good direction.
And I would just say, I mean, to build off of that, one of the things that we had talked about as a board when we were doing our executive director search through last year before, you know, we made the decision about Sean, is we were really looking for somebody who would push KRT forward and have some innovative ideas to bring KRT, you know, into the present, to modernize us a little bit. And I think that has happened. I think that, you know, we have moved forward, and that has been, you know, a credit to Sean and a credit to all of the KRT staff and the drivers, and everybody's working together. And I love the direction that we've been moving in. I think it's wonderful, and I think Sean's been a really integral part of that. And so I'm very pleased with what has happened in the last year.
Yeah. And one of the things I don't think we can underestimate is having relationships, you know, with state officials, working with the Department of Transportation, him being there and so forth. It takes years many times to establish those type of relationships and respect, and have him come in there and be able to leverage those, I think, to help the authority here is a wonderful thing on our behalf.
I think too that the relationship with the city is strong, and the relationship with the community has gotten stronger. We have a great partnership and a very good relationship, very good back and forth, always accessible. So thumbs up from a city perspective, but also from a community perspective on everything that you guys have done, that the board has approved and Sean has done to help with city events like regatta, things coming up like the Christmas parade and things. Very easy to work with.
Good, and a good spokesperson. I mean, he's a good face for KRT.
I would like to echo also that he's been worked well communicating with the board, and you know, Sean has done a really good job. He's was thrown into the levy, and it's all new to him, and the construction, finishing construction. So he had a lot on his plate the first year. I think he's done a really good job. I appreciate what he's done and kind of keeps up with us as members to communicate.
I was gonna say, in years past, like operators and mechanics, they don't know who the executive director was or general manager, but he's made a priority to spend time with the operators and mechanics, and they're impressed with that. But
Well, I'd
we'll go
like-
downstairs with them and hang out with them, talk to them.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, your listening sessions, I think, is something that's important because David and his team probably feels like at times they are not always heard or that their opinions are weighted the same. Do your folks feel comfortable with Sean? I mean,
A lot of them do, and I do. We've had our issues because it's been from lack of experience on Sean's part, but we worked through them and we worked them out and settled them, and I think he's doing a good job.
okay. Well, unless somebody has something that they are uncomfortable saying in front of Sean, I'm gonna ask that Kurt ask Sean to come back in.
Were you gonna do something about his salary before you?
Well, we're gonna bring Sean in, because he needs to hear some of these things. If we're gonna say nice things and things that we feel are important, he needs to hear those.
We say bad things, bad things.
Yeah, we'll bring him down.
Hey, you had your chance.
We're all laughing, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, that's a good sign, yeah.
So, everybody had a chance to kind of air out their concerns. Lots of positive feedback. I'll just read something that I got. You know, my boss essentially is the county commission. So if I do something, you know, we're responsible for Sean, I'm responsible to them. If we do something that they don't like, then I'm the one that's gonna pay for that. But I asked the county commission, I said, well, we need feedback because he's responsible to you all. There's lots of, like Jane was talking about, the relationship with the city. That relationship with the county is also important. So this was the comment I got back, which came from Jennifer Harrell, but originated from Commissioner Carper, the president of the county commission. Sean is the most communicative, effective, and responsible director he has seen in 26 years. He has been on the commission. No disrespect to others. The others were excellent. He had an excellent relationship with Doug and Denny. Sean has shown leadership in the levy election and post-levy election. He serves KRT well. So that's the perspective from the county commission, which is important to me because I want to make sure I get what Sean feeds me from time to time, but I don't always know what's going on of the things that I'm not told about. So I was trying to kind of make sure we incorporate all of those things. Does anybody have anything, now that Sean's back in the room, that you want to tell him about his work?
Well,
I think we're mostly all in agreement that you've done a pretty good job.
Thanks.
Coming in and not really knowing a whole lot.
And you know, Scott kind of summed it up that experience is touted to be important, but Sean, what I underestimated when we hired Sean was the relationships that he's brought from the state level and the congressional level that are going to potentially pay dividends. A year ago, we weren't even dreaming of a new facility, hadn't even discussed it. And now we're thinking about it, we've got design underway, we're spending some money to get to that. It's gonna be fantastic for the maintenance staff, to get them out of an old facility, but we gotta figure out how to pay for it. And I think that those relationships are gonna be part of us getting to that point. And we wouldn't be there with a different director necessarily.
And I think a lot of times you can't be underestimated. Bring in somebody new and fresh from the outside with new ideas and wanting to not have things the status quo and just keep things as they are and look to be innovative, because technology has changed the way that we, you know, move people around drastically, and it's going to continue to change a lot. And to have someone that wants to move it forward and push it forward and really stretch ourselves and looking at new ways of providing you know, transportation to people throughout the valley, I think is paramount, as opposed to having somebody where we just do things the same old way. So I'm very appreciative of you and what you've done in that respect.
And if I could add to that, yeah, I've been here going on over 15 years now, and when I first started, Denny had been the general manager for about a year at that point. And you know, so I worked a lot with Denny, worked a lot with Doug, and you know, they had their own leadership styles, things like that they were kind of the same in that respect as far as their leadership styles, and it was more of kind of an era, gone by, kind of an older style of management. And now that Sean has come into the picture, it's like it's just a more fresh atmosphere, a better, not necessarily a better leadership style, but a different leadership style that fits more with today's world, with technology, what it is, and things like that. And for someone like me that's that's been around for a while and got to experience Denny and Doug and now here with Sean, I think Sean's leadership style is a lot more fresher, I guess is the word that I would use.
Well, I'm glad to hear he's spending time in the garage so that your guys place value in the fact that he's over there and has an interest in what they're doing.
Right, and like Jacob was saying earlier, that type of thing didn't used to happen under Denny and Doug, and so now that Sean has been over there and trying to learn more about what we do in the garage and try to understand what it takes to make the garage run. The guys over there, they see that he's making an effort to be more involved in what they do and understand more of their job, and that's always a positive thing.
Travis?
I just want to say a few things. Like I've had to relearn almost like how we work here, because like all the rapid changes like with technology and things, and Sean really embraces those, and like we're moving forward quickly to go out and make these changes. And we also had a community comment from Michelle Denson that all of the updates have been greatly appreciated, and I believe that speaks for all of us as well.
So that somebody's online listening to the Zoom or whatever?
That's from YouTube.
Okay. So part of this, I didn't know exactly how the review would go. I expected it to be positive because I've had a good experience with Sean, but we do need to address compensation. Just for framework, when we brought Sean in, we recognized that he didn't have transit experience, so his salary when he started reflected that. He's exceeded my expectations. To put it in context, Sean's salary is roughly $118,000. Morgantown is $145,000. These are their executive directors. And Huntington's about $135,000. And we haven't talked to Sean at all about his expectations, but what I would like with this review is for the board to make a motion to allow the executive committee, Eric and Valerie, me, who deal with Sean the most closely, to work with him to create a compensation package that is commensurate with the work that he's doing, and also in an effort that we'd like to keep Sean here.
I'll make the motion that the executive committee meet and discuss his increased compensation.
Okay, so I don't know if everybody online could hear that, but Connie made the motion that the executive committee work with Sean to create a compensation package that's commensurate with the expectations of the job, the work that he's done in the prior year, and to make it competitive with what other executive directors are being paid throughout the state. Are there any additional comments in regard to that? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Now
Back
we
to
really
work.
expect you to.
No more of this fluffy stuff.
Yeah, expect him to do his job now.
That's right. Okay, item 7C.
Yeah, so 7C is the comprehensive operational analysis. This is the COA, or what we traditionally call a system plan, which we talked about last meeting, how we're essentially about 8 years overdue on doing a system plan. And so when we worked with Wendell to kind of outline what we would want out of a plan like this, and they brought in Kimley Horn, which is a subcontractor at Wendell, who specializes in public transit. They call it a COA here, a comprehensive operational analysis, which touches on, it really goes outside the scope of our normal system plan, because it touches on things such as creating performance measures for our fixed route operations, which we traditionally don't have. Takes a look at our existing conditions and services. It's going to analyze fare structure, something we haven't changed in a long time, and also what potential technologies are out there that we have not contemplated in the past. And as task 6, you'll see here is also a microtransit assessment to see if this concept could actually work in Kanawha County. Task 7 is an alternative fuel options. This is coming in the future, and it's something that we need to make sure that we're ready to embrace. And so this part of the study will actually help us be ready for that situation when it happens. And also task 8 is a funding assessment, which is to go out and look at what other grant opportunities may exist out there that traditionally KRT has not tried to compete for. If there's money on the table that we could bring back to KRT, we want to know about it because we want to embrace it and go after it. So this study, we had budgeted in the capital budget $150,000 to do a system plan. This the scope we received from Kimley Horn is $186,764, so it is a little bit over as far as $36,000, but it actually achieves way more than what we've traditionally done in what we call a system plan. So what I'm bringing to the board is asking if we could get a motion to accept Kimley Horn's scope of work for a comprehensive operational analysis of KRT for a total fee of $186,764. Sorry.
And we allocated $150 for this work?
Correct.
So we'll get the excess $37,000 from?
Really, we'll just reallocate what's in the capital reserve from putting it into, it's in the capital reserve, just have it as a designated amount, yes.
Okay. And it's been a long time since this has been done, and I think this is we're gonna find this to be slightly different than the route study that was done 10 years ago. Really start to build some efficiencies.
And plus, I think it'll give you a much deeper insight as to what's going on and how things work. I mean, I think the knowledge that you'll gain from this is invaluable.
It's going to be a framework and kind of a map forward for KRT, and that's exciting for me.
And majority of the operator suggestions that came up a couple weeks ago would be fixed with this study being done. It would answer a lot of those questions.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 186.
186,764.
Okay, so there's a motion to accept the comprehensive operational analysis from Kimley Horn. Is there a second?
Yes.
I'll second.
Second from Hicks. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Then item D.
Yes, so item D is our on-demand software provider. We have a software that we purchased in 2015 that helps schedule all of our CATs, so we call that our on-demand service, our paratransit vehicles. That software has become quite antiquated with how fast technology changes. And so after those 7 years, we're now looking at something new that can do the job and actually potentially do the job better and embrace future technologies and future opportunities that may come out of this system plan. This is another example where teaming up with the NeoRide group that we joined can potentially pay off for us. What we have is a 5-year contract. So NeoRide selected a company called VIA to go into contract with to provide on-demand software scheduling. VIA was coincidentally the vendor that we were most excited about on our own before we even joined NeoRide. So the exciting thing for us was the potential price for a 5-year period for us doing it alone was around
double the number.
Yeah, $660,000. And what we have is a contract here potentially for 5 years of contracting with VIA through NeoRide for a total cost of $331,700. And so that's what I'm asking today is that the board approve a motion to select VIA to provide on-demand scheduling program for a period of 5 years at a total cost of $331,700.
I'll make that motion.
I'll make that motion, Sean.
Software program.
Okay, there's actually a motion by Sutton. Valerie, would you like to second that?
Sure.
Okay, motion and a second to implement the on-demand service provider recommended VIA. Any further discussion?
And we had budgeted in the capital reserve that higher 600,000 number for this, because we were anticipating to go into this budget. The board had approved it back then when we did the budget.
But this will be now an OpEx expense, so we won't need that.
And that's the
capital.
part we'll be reallocating, correct?
Okay. Yeah, so this will be rolled out every year in totality of 600 or 330,000.
Because things have changed. When we first did it, we paid everything up front. Now,
It's all
if you
subscription.
Cloud-based, everything's subscription, and that does, gives you a little more insurance for maintenance and everything.
Okay.
Whoa, let me ask you, did I misunderstand you? Did you say that every year it's?
No, the total is
I thought it was a
summarized.
5-year.
It is, but my point is, we allocated a lump sum of over $600,000 to pay for this. We're paying half that, we're paying it over time, 5
Opposed
years.
to upfront.
So I mean, it's
I
best of
thought I
both worlds.
misheard you, yes.
So we will, in the budget year for '23, put that in as a line item for our
Oh, the
operating
increase,
expenses.
yes.
Instead of burning out of our capital reserve all with one check.
All right.
So there's a motion on the floor. Any additional questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is Amendment 2, Sean.
Yeah, so 7E is Amendment 2 resolution. So what we have seen, and I'm sure you're all aware, there is a constitutional amendment on the November 8th ballot that would enable the legislature to erase, it doesn't allow them to modify, it allows them to either erase certain taxes in the state of West Virginia. One of those is a personal property tax on vehicles, and the other is a inventory tax on for manufacturers and machinery. And the issue and why this is such a concern for us, and it's a concern for all counties and all cities across the state of West Virginia, is that essentially when the legislature would be erasing a permanent revenue stream and replacing it with the promise that they're going to make counties and cities whole. And when that happens, one thing, especially, Nick works with us on the levy, but that levy that relies, about 30% of our levy relies on personal property tax and vehicles. So if we take away the personal property tax on vehicles in West Virginia, we're looking at about a $2.5 million hit to KRT's $14 million budget. So that's very real, and it's scary for us to think, okay, well, the legislature promises they're going to give us that money. You can make that promise today, but you can't tell me 10 years from now you're still going to be able to honor that, or that we're going to be in such a great fiscal status that we're able to do that. So our county commission, President Kent Harper came out early on this and said, hey, this is going to be a really big problem. You've seen Governor Justice hop on board, and yesterday we were in South Charleston for an event. And we want to stand up in solidarity with the county commissions across the state, because we realize that if this happens, everyone, including KRT, is going to be going down to Charleston and lobbying to receive the funding that right now our citizens have said, hey, we want you to have this for the next 5 years. So what we're trying to do is get ahead of that and make sure that we show our support loud. And I appreciate everyone. David Sayer and the union have come out to the events. We appreciate them. But this just is going to solidify that KRT's board opposes the passage of Amendment 2.
Where did the wording for this come from?
Yeah, the wording, so Kurt helped me on the wording here. And Kurt, you want to speak more towards it?
Sure. So I took a lot of what the county commission had already did. So we modified. What? That's what we generally do with resolutions. We plagiarize it. If there's something out there that we can grab, we can take. So that's where a lot of the language came from.
Okay.
Obviously, we modified some of it to fit into what KRT would be out if the Amendment 2 passes.
Okay. And as my understanding right now, there's 53 counties that have opposed Amendment 2. There's 2 that are the counties that happen to be where the legislative leadership are based,
Finance chairs, yeah.
are in favor of Amendment 2. But the reality is that if they put together some kind of committee to determine how money is allocated to counties, and somehow it's dedicated in Kanawha County that's public transit, we could have a committee of legislators that don't even have public transit in their districts. So we will not be looked upon as favorably as we would when you think about the importance it is to Kanawha County or the legislators that are here. So this is important for KRT to continue its funding, and I'm hoping that the board will see fit to adopt it. We can sign it and make it a public record.
Only thing I'll say is this legislature has set this state back 50 years. And them controlling the money.
Exactly.
Is maybe they will, maybe they won't give you the money. I make a motion you accept the resolution resolution on amendment 2.
I second that.
Okay, motion and a second. Is there further discussion about this resolution on amendment 2?
I just want to echo, this is the most harmful thing that you have in the cities.
Don't vote for this.
I'm all about, reducing taxes. The commercials, they just focus on one thing basically, it's a car tax. But there are other things that will not benefit the whole population. And it's just a bad deal for public in general. You get public safety, police, fire, EMS, they rely on these funds to a certain extent. So I strongly recommend concur to pass this resolution.
I appreciate that support. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries.
John, before he adjourns or does something, that was an excellent article you had in the paper.
Thank you, sir.
And I hope everybody got a chance to read it. I posted it out the golf course, somebody tore it down, but.
Amendment 2 is going to be hotly debated, amongst families and friends and business
Everybody
people,
thinks
because
they're getting a break on it. You're not getting a break. They're coming up that money somehow.
Yeah.
Somehow they gotta come up with the
Yeah.
money. Sorry.
Well, you don't want to centralize it under the dome.
No, you can't. You got that right.
Connie, did you have a comment?
I just, not about this, I just wanted to, give Jacob a nice recommendation. He did an excellent job on a presentation that he did recently to try to get some more money and things going on for KRT.
Where was that?
At West Virginia State.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we revisited the student pass that we do with UC.
Okay.
They're interested in the similar program.
Okay. And we'll be able to put that together for them?
Yeah, we met, they're getting some student passes created to test, make sure they'll work on our fare boxes, and then we'll meet back with them to continue this month.
Okay.
But from what I understand, his presentation was excellent. Was they thought they were going to get you.
I know, yeah, I had an unexpected.
That's what Sean apparently did a good job, so I just wanted you to be aware of that and
Thank you, Sam.
to recognize that he did he's doing a good
Sean's
job.
event coordinator, case number, so unless he can organize where he's going to be and with whom, he doesn't need to go.
I was going to add one more thing. I wanted to thank Chris Baldwin for working with the city of Hinton came to us, city councilman approached us about potentially donating some buses to them, and Chris was able to manage that. We donated our 4 hybrid vehicles that we were ready to retire with the 4 2022 buses that we received. So the city of Hinton now has 4 buses to kind of begin their process of starting public transportation. We received really nice feedback from the mayor. So Chris, thank you for helping them along, and we're really happy to be that partner, because for us, hey, we can sell a bus for $4,000 that we get, or you can give it to a community that's never going to be able to afford that. So we were happy, again, to play that role.
Do they have the expertise to deal with those?
Yeah, their city works department, I guess they have some folks there that are up to the task of maintaining those buses, so.
I guess most of it's just dealing with a diesel engine, but the batteries probably require some outside vendors.
Yeah, and that's what I talked to Larry Metter about, was the hybrid side of the buses. They're probably gonna need to, if it goes down, they're gonna need some help from Allison, from Western Branch Diesel to places like that. But the rest of it, I guess they're pretty used to working on diesel engines and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, I just hate to saddle a small community if they don't have the ability to deal with that equipment.
Right.
That's not, I mean, I'm sure it's sophisticated equipment that requires some specific training.
Yeah, and also kind of communicated to him that while I can't spend the majority of my day on the phone with them, helping them with issues and things like that, that he could feel free to reach out to me, and that I would try to, help him when I can, and at least point him in the right direction if I can. So
Okay.
he knows that there's still some support there ongoing. So.
Okay. Wow, that was a fast hour. We got a lot accomplished.
Yes.
Thanks for everybody's participation and focus. If there's nothing